Hello, this is Margarita Monet from Edge of Paradise, and you are listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shaped metal. Please visit our website, The Metal Pit, www.themetalpit.org, where you can find album reviews, interviews, and live show reviews. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit. And you can check out our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com at the Metal Pit 666. And if you have any comments or suggestions or complaints, you can email us info@themetalpit.org. Today, my two guests are Jim. How you doing, Jim?
Oh, having a great time. How are you guys?
And good. And we have Georgina from New York City.
Oh my goodness, you're always mentioning the Big Apple. Thank you so much for that introduction, Blake. Hi, how are you? Hi, Jim. How's it going?
Awesome. Great to see you again there, Georgina.
Likewise, guys, likewise. Nice to see you both as well.
Okay, so we're gonna do, I don't know, I don't know, I'm gonna call this grunge, but it's still, I don't know, this album is probably this band's heaviest album of they only have 6 studio albums, I believe. But we're going to talk about Alice in Chains today. And they were an American, I guess we'll call it a rock band, formed in Seattle, Washington in 1987. Of course, their former singer was Lane Staley, who died of a speedball. I don't know much about drugs. Georgina can probably help me on this. A speedball overdose on April 5th, 2002 at the age of 34. Okay, but the album we're going to talk about is from 1992 and their second studio album called Dirt. And first, I'm going to ask you two, if you remember, when do you first remember hearing Alice in Chains, or maybe this album, or maybe the song Rooster, because that was probably the first single from this album. I could be wrong though, but Jim, what about you? Do you know? Remember?
Oh, I would have first heard Alice in Chains, and I argue with everybody online. I think it's a metal band. I'm not. I argue, and everybody's. I like some of the grunge stuff. I mean, but this is definitely a metal band in my mind. And I would have heard 1990s Facelift. I remember seeing the video for like Man in a Box and We Die Young. It's wicked. So I remember seeing it and just it blew me away. Lane Stanley's voice and just with Cantrell and the band was really tight. So I mean that was the first time, and I just fell in love with them from that point on.
Georgina, do you remember?
I do remember, actually. I think the first time I was exposed to Alice in Chains in general was probably in the schoolyard, in the schoolyard, in high school, where, after school we would kind of all hang out and everyone would be playing something. Gosh, those were, good, nice, innocent, and wholesome days. That's probably when I was first exposed to them. And I found it to be charming because I found that there was this southern quality with Lane and Jerry's vocals, and like this rasp that with this metal influence, and these two men kind of like harmonized when I would hear them vocally, creating like this satisfying like vocal work. And they kind of weaved in this sense of musicality and like this catchiness to this filth, especially with this album with Dirt. But it was just so great. And I consider these guys like sludge metal. I'm kind of like on your side.
Yeah.
And yeah, I consider them like sludge metal. Yeah. And great stuff. But that's when I was first exposed in the schoolyard, Blake, in high school.
What? I don't remember high school. So
oh boy.
Well, this would have been after I was done high school because I'm a couple years older. I don't really remember. I think Jerry, I kind of vaguely think that Jerry Cantrell had something to do with Metallica once, not in Metallica, but that they were friends, or maybe there was a guest thing something that might have been why I thought, oh, let me check into this band or something like that. Because I remember Jerry Cantrell more than I do any of the other band members. So I'm thinking maybe there was something to do with that, where that's why I checked them out. And I don't believe I think Dirt is the first Alice in Chains album I ever heard. And it's really the only one that I really got into a lot because I love this album. But I think I did go back and hear Facelift and whatever, the one with the three-legged dog on it. But I just never got into them like I did this one. So, but yeah, they were kind of a part of the grunge movement, I guess you could call it, in Seattle in the 90s with
Yes.
Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. But Nirvana and Pearl Jam I would never listen to. I listened to Soundgarden a little bit, but not that much. But let me see. Where's my bio on the album? Oh, yeah. So I did say it's the second album. It was released September 29th, 1992 by Columbia Records, and it peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200 chart. It is the band's highest selling album to date. And it was the band's last album. It was only the second album, but with the 4 original members. And the album spawned 5 singles, which we'll get into. I guess I don't even know if we're going to get into that or not, but we're going to get into it anyway. So we're going to start with Them Bones. Excuse me. And Jim, what do you think of Them Bones?
Oh, it's a great song. I mean, this was one of the singles off this album, and I mean, what a way to start the album off, with an actual hit. And this was played a lot. I mean, and one of the things that I think a lot of people, it's a little overshadowed and underappreciated. I mean, I find this album on a whole a little bit, kind of a bit of a depressing album in hindsight, looking back at the fact of what went on and a lot of the writings that were behind this. But bass guitarist Mike Starr was a wicked bass player, and like in this song, it really shows it off. And there's a number of songs with his signature just thumping bass. And I mean, he ended up passing away in 2011. And this would have been the last album that he was on, because I believe after this he either left or was terminated, I think, due to his addiction issue. But a wicked bass player, and it's kind of sad because I think about what would have happened. But I mean, this has a great intro to it. The guitar's great. Elaine's voice is just bang on with this song, and it's a great way to start off the album. Just a smack, kind of a punch to the face.
Georgina, Them Bones.
All right, well, let's see. I've got a lot to say about this song, right? Dirt kicks off with this like adrenaline rush, with this blood pumping scream from Lane, and he has this like gruffy voice. And this is like the opening second of Them Bones. And it's the first thing that a listener would hear on Dirt. And it actually sets the tone perfectly. And following these baneful screams is like this trudging bass line with this like stuttering drum. And then, right? And then the bass ripples for a few seconds in like this different time signature before you get like this syncopated silence. And then you get another scream. And then the bass starts up again. And this kind of repeats a few times before we actually launch into the verses. And then Lane's voice like suffocates the instrumentation. And then he's like delivering these lyrics, making the most out of life, basically. And the delivery of his vocals and like his pitch, it gives us this dynamic. And eventually, like, I believe like there's like this change in chorus, and then he delivers the catchiest hooks on the damn record. I feel so alone, gonna end up in this big old pile of them bones, right? He wails hoarsely, unleashing like this anguish into this mix. And then I think 2/3 of the way, there's like this guitar solo. And then you hear like this, at least I did, this hair metal influence that dominates in there for a couple of seconds. And then finally, the exit ensues, repeating like this hook, this hook a couple of times, and then it closes into sheer metal intensity. Literally. So I love it. What a great song. Yeah.
And this song is about the mortality of life. That's why we'll end up in a pile of bones. So
Yes.
them bones.
Yes. Yep.
And I was gonna mention Jerry Cantrell wrote most of. I think he only didn't write 2 of the songs. I think on here. I think he had part of all the other ones. So then we go to "Damn That River," which was inspired after a fight he had with Sean Kinney, who broke a coffee table over his head.
Lovely.
So Georgina, what about "Damn That River"?
All right, "Damn That River." Let's see. Well, "Damn That River" kind of carries over the momentum that was generated from them bones. You've got this like mud tinged like guitar lead that gives it some flavor, and the vocals are powerful, like, and it takes us on this melodic journey of bitterness, violence, and revenge. And all the while the drums like continue to thud in the background, and Lane exclaims, "Oh, you could have damned that river," with such conviction, right? And this seething rage that every opportunity is just kind of an infectious hook, and it's just so catchy and threatening. I just love this song, and it's nearly as identical kind of in feel to them bones, but it's a fantastic cut regardless, making like the first 2 songs of Dirt just kind of a blaze of fire.
And Jim?
Oh, well, this is my favorite. So I have like maybe 3 super favorites that would be 1A, 1B, and 1C, as I always say. But this is my favorite song on the album. To follow in Georgina's what she said, she's exactly right. I mean, this is the heaviest. I think it's the heaviest song on the album, and it's thick, it's chugging, it's got that wicked metal guitar riff in it, and again, the heavy bass and the drums are just amazing. And I think this is the only song on the album that had a writing credit to Kinney on it, so that's kind of interesting as well too. But no, this, I mean, you're leaving them bones, the first song, and this just continues on with this massive attack. And I love this is probably my 1A on the album. It's that good. It's that good. And this is the main song, one of the main songs, why I consider, I mean, off Facelift, I consider many of the metal songs too, but this is definitely a metal song in my book.
Well, going back to that thing, I definitely think this is a metal album for sure.
Yeah.
Or at least heavy. I don't know. I don't really know what grunge even is, really. I don't like all these labels anyway. But yeah, I would just call this a straight ahead heavy metal album, really, myself. Then we go to track 3, "Rain When I Die." Jim.
Oh, this is my 1B. So I got 2 of my favorite songs, 2 and 3. I mean, it's hilarious. I mean, this is a wicked, that bass intro is just amazing. And I think this is another classic example, even more so than Them Bones, that shows how good Mike Starr was and how much I mean, I guess maybe grunge, I mean, there's knowing what I know about grunge music, it was down tuned a lot. It was a lot of bass, a lot of drum. Maybe that's why, they kind of introed a lot of songs like this. But I think maybe they were playing off. The song came out, right when the grunge era was taking off. So they had Facelift out, then they went with this, and it's got a really cool bluesy sound. I like kind of like the guitar slides in it that has kind of a little bit of, I consider it a bit of feedback on it, and it just sounds so good. Again, another pack of massive guitar riffs, and I just think it's an underrated track. I think the song 2 and song 3 on this are underrated. There's a lot of hits on here, a lot of singles, and probably you know, if you have their, I think their greatest hits album there with the fighters on the cover of it, there's, I think there's 4 off of this on that, and I mean that obviously makes sense. But these, like 2 and 3, definitely underrated songs, and I really hope people who go back and decide, if there's fans out there that maybe newer fans that don't know of Alice in Chains, check this album out. Really kind of give the whole album from 1 to 13 just a really good listen, because not only is it that good, the songs that are not necessarily singles, but it kind of, you know, towards the back end of the album tells a story. So.
And Georgina, Rain When I Die.
You got to live these titles. I really like you. Really, really great stuff. I think this is like one of these slow burners. It begins with some like crunching bass before it launches into this like grinding, distorted guitar that's like hissing at us like a snake, like threatening to lounge at its prey. And the drums help to maintain this uneasy tranquility, and the guitar lets off some high-pitched licks that sound like amazing. And I feel like the momentum builds, and Lane's melancholy vocal notes, you know, keep going little by little into this launch, into this like proggy, distorted guitar rhythm that sounds like light and airy. Actually, what I'd read is that this was co-written and harmonized. It was Lane and also Jerry Cantrell, and the song basically addressed the feelings of love that both men felt towards their girlfriends. I wish I met someone like this. Where the hell are you? Step up, man. Come on. I'll come find me and write a song about me too. But the song addresses like their feelings, and there's an underlying sadness to it all. They express this like pressure. They feel that they bottled up all their emotions, and they're like the strong ones in the relationship here, and they're kind of portraying their struggles of trying to keep to one man's masculinity, basically. At least that's what I got from it. And the hook is catchy, and Lane's vocals are great before it kind of ends. So that's my 2 cents about Rain When I Die. Blake and Jim.
Yeah, this album, as you were talking there, I did read that this album is definitely a darker subject matter than the first one, and it's kind of a concept album in a way, when like 3 of the songs are about drugs, or primarily heroin, which I'm sure was dealt with a bit there by Lane too, not just whatever snowballs. But anyway, yeah, so it is a darker album, and a lot of the songs do kind of talk about the same things. And then we go on to Down in a Hole, which was written by Jerry Cantrell to his longtime girlfriend, Courtney Clark. Georgina, what do you think of Down in a Hole?
Let's see. Well, this was a Down in a Hole. Like it's going in my head while I'm talking about it. Like I'm just kind of replaying it in my mind. I've heard it so many times. I think it was a complete shift in tone, and it was delivering this dusty ballad with some harmonized vocals, and it was another sad song, but it served some of the best imagery on this record. Bury me softly in this womb. I kept this part of me from you. Sands rains down, and here I sit holding rare flowers in a tomb in bloom. Now, I always took these dejected words as somebody like lamenting once again, a lost relationship. And they're kind of carrying this person with them and treasuring their memory. Also, it kind of leaves you heartbroken. And the verses here are some of the most mellow and illustrating lyrics that I've heard. And you can see how the talents that come out from Jerry and Lane from that. and the feelings of depression kind of reach a boiling point on the chorus. Down in a hole, and I don't know if I can be saved. See my heart, I decorate it like a grave. Well, simply put, it's kind of like a downward spiral, and our narrator feels like he can't escape. But it's Down the Hole is easily one of the most heart wrenching breakup songs of the 90s that I don't think a lot of people talk about the real meaning behind the song, but I love it. I love it. I love it.
Jim, you like Down in a Hole.
Yeah, I mean, what else can I say? I kind of got like it's got that really cool acoustic intro and Cantrell's co-lead vocals on it, but it's got definitely a stoner kind of metal vibe if you want to go kind of into that lower sort of register. I kind of it would have fit on like with an. I mean, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Acid Bath, the band, and it's very very similar to what
Yeah.
that would be on their the Kite String Pop album that they have. Very very similar. One of my favorite stoner bands. So, but an interesting fact about the placement of the song actually. So, like I have the Canadian version of the CD right here. So this song is actually number 11 on the Canadian first pressing of Dirt. So it goes from 3 Rain When I Die right to Sick Man, and then it's this is kind of slammed in between Angry Chair and Wood, where one of the instrumental song isn't even listed. So it's kind of all, and then I think when they did the second pressing of it, they had it back to song number 4. So it's kind of neat that it's like that. But yeah, definitely to follow what Georgina said. I mean, it's a really kind of mellow song. I like it. I think it is another definitely underrated song on the album, but it's that cool. And I love the fact I think the co-lead vocals on a lot of parts of this album really makes it attractive too. Has that really distinctive sound that gives Alice in Chains kind of their moniker, what they had back then, for being such kind of a cutting edge band in this, and no wonder why this album sold so well for them. I mean, it's pretty much nothing short of a masterpiece, and this song fits right in.
Well, I think one thing I was just comment because Georgina obviously knows the lyrics well on what they are, but since this came out in 92, like it was when CDs were coming out. So when I had albums, I would always read the lyrics along, but it was harder on the CDs, of course, because the words are smaller. So I don't even, when I listened to this album, I don't think I ever even paid attention to the lyrics. Brewster, I knew what that was about, but other than that, I just thought some guy was down in a hole. That's all I thought.
Trapped in a well.
But I never really bothered to read the lyrics and stuff and I didn't even bother to do that for this podcast either, because I know Georgina likes sad love songs.
Oh, yeah.
Or hate songs, whatever you want to call it. So now we go to Sick Man. And this song came together when Staley asked Cantrell to write him the sickest, darkest, most fucked up and heaviest thing he could write. So that's what he came up with, I guess, was Sick Man. Jim, what do you think of Sick Man?
That's got a really killer riff in it. I mean, I think it's got parts of it in there where it's got kind of like, it's reminiscent of like maybe a Rob Zombie solo song. Like it's got kind of that when he's yelling in it, it's kind of neat. But it's not one of my favorites on here. I find that like it's this album's got 13 tracks on it, and I think you hit it on the head when you brought up the CD. So we're transitioning for the last couple of years on when this came out from album cassette to CD. So I found a lot of bands were also adding a lot more material that they probably normally wouldn't, and I don't know. I always thought this song at 13 tracks, I know one's only kind of an instrumental and a short track, but I would have been nice to maybe add a couple of these to Jar of Flies and make that into a full-on album rather than just a 7-song EP. And even for an EP, 7 songs is fairly fairly long as well. So, but it's not one of my favorites on the album, but it's still got that killer riff, and I like it. And I mean, it's leading up to a really awesome song.
Georgina, do you like Sick Man?
Oh, God.
Not Sick Men, but Sick Man.
No, I don't like sick men. Stay away from me. Leave me alone. I had enough. Well, Sick Man is easily one of the most demented songs on this album. And as we all know, that from hearing it, it kind of addresses the horrors of drug addiction, right? It begins with this like titillating drum pattern, and then like the guitar glares in, and it has this like clean cathartic quality, and then eventually it's desecrated by these like cringe inducing vocals that smear like throughout the buildup of like the first verse. And Lane's delivery like screams with these filthy lyrics, likening to his own life, to that of a fly. And after the verse is over, basically, there's this like abrupt slowdown, followed by these agonizing screeches, and then this bouncy drum pattern, and you feel like you're in some kind of like a horror circus show. And then the chorus is pretty devastating because it kind of contains some of the yodeling on the record as he weeps. And he says, I can't feel the wheel, but I can't steer when my thoughts become my biggest fear, right? Expressing the desire for change, but not being able to kind of fully commit to it. And then this track basically kind of descends into pure evil when the bridge kicks in and he says, can you see the end? Choke on me, my friend. Ooh, that's some heavy, you know what, right there. And that's easily one of the best moments on the album. It's just that I like Jim. I can't highlight this as one of the better songs on the album, but it exists and it's a great one too, but it's not a highlight.
Okay, and one of the things I do, back to the Alice in Chains or this album being metal or whatever, I do like this album is an hour long.
Yeah.
Almost an hour long. I mean, and most of the songs are like in the 5 and 6 minute range, which is something that I like. And I don't know, I never listened to the Nirvana or whatever, Pearl Jam or whatever, but it just seems like it makes it more metal because they are longer songs and they're not boring. I don't really find one bad song on this. I don't think Wood might be my least favorite, but I don't know. I like them all, but I don't really know if there's one or two. Like, I don't know if I have a 1A or 1B like Jim does. I don't know if there is one that I love the most. I do. I like them all, I think. So then we get to Rooster, and I was wrong. This is actually the fourth single. I thought this would have been the first single for some reason, but this was actually the fourth single released from this album. So who's turning to Jim? What do you think of Rooster?
Oh, I mean, that's a wicked song. It's got that recognizable intro. As soon as you hear it, you know what you're getting into. It's got a killer groove to it. It's got that slower sort of melodic start. I like how he's just kind of talking in it, and it's kind of gaining, momentum. And then as soon as he hits, here comes the rooster, boom, it just takes off. And I mean, I thought this would have been probably the first single as well, but I would assume probably would probably be the first one just from it was the fact that it was part of a movie soundtrack. But I mean, this is one of their probably one of their all-time most recognizable Alice in Chains songs. When you think of Alice in Chains, boom, Rooster comes up probably right away. And it's that good of a song. It would be it's one of my favorites on the album. I like to pick some songs that maybe don't get as much love, and this one got a lot of love. So, but it's still a kick-ass song, and I mean, it deserves to be one of their most recognizable songs. I mean, it is that good, and I absolutely love it. And I know the video played on MTV and Much Music like every second video, and it was on every it just was just pounded into you. And but no, it's a wicked wicked track.
Georgina.
Yeah, this is definitely one of their most commercialized hits, so to speak. And the interesting thing is, I read that it was featuring lyrics about Cantrell's father, and it's a song about war, right? I'm not a warmonger, but I love war movies. I love anything about Vietnam. I love the veterans. I appreciate them and thank them for all that they've done for our country, right? And this song was a highlight, I believe, in the grudge movement. And there's some suspense in there. And then eventually you get like this visceral gut punch where, yeah, here comes the rooster. Oh, yeah, right? And you ain't gonna die. No, no, no. You know you ain't gonna die. But deep down, we all know, right? War, right? You live, you die, you serve. But I believe, like I mentioned, it was basically celebrating the legacy of Cantrell's dad. And the guitars here are roaring in this like grungy pattern. It's sluggish, but yet at the end, it's so gratifying. Love the rooster. Never get tired of this album and this song. It's just kind of, even if it was produced today, today, it would still be fresh. Like if you, right? It doesn't go out of style. This does not go out of style.
And the name Rooster came from Jerry Cantrell Sr., as that was his childhood nickname. I'm not sure why his nickname would be Rooster. Maybe he had red hair.
Because his hair stood up on his head.
Oh, was it? Oh, I did see that.
Kind of probably like a cowlick or something like that. I don't
know.
Yeah. Okay, then we get to, I've lost track. Okay. We're talking about some heroin use, so we'll let Georgina go first. I'm kidding. She doesn't do heroin. I'm just joking. I don't think she ever did.
No,
maybe she did. She lives
definitely
in New York.
not. No. Definitely.
Or maybe one of her ex-husbands did. Maybe. Okay. Anyway,
I don't know what they're doing now, but no, I have no idea. I'm not disclosing that on. No, I have no idea.
Anyway, the song's Junkhead. Georgina, what do you think of Junkhead?
Let's see, Junkhead. It's sluggish, but it's not as gratifying as the previous song that we kind of highlighted. It's got this slow burning guitar riff, and it's typical of a doom metal cut. And the chorus here is probably one of the most rudimentary, in my opinion. And Lane's vocals kind of soar, but you feel empty as he screams, "What's my drug of choice?" I really am a big lyric person. I mean, I really listen to these songs and I try to get into the mind of the person that's writing them. Well, what you have, it shows very little substance, and he does drugs basically from where I'm listening to this song without going broke. At least that's the inference here, right? And the guitar solo is so well performed, but it feels so drab when compared to, the solo that was in them Bones or Rain When I Die, and other subsequent, like other tracks on the record. But it's a great song. I won't deny it.
And Jim, what about Junkhead?
Yeah, I mean, Georgina, I got a note here that says it totally has a doom metal sound. I mean, it has that, definitely, again, that low register, but I think these songs that are about substance abuse, obviously it's going in a sort of definitely an unhappy place. So they're going to sing them that way for sure. But this would probably be my pick. Rolling Stone magazine, I think, rated this album number 26 of all time heavy metal albums. Not that Rolling Stone magazine really matters, and then they rated this album number 6 on all time grunge albums. So kind of interesting there. Like, this would be the most grunge song on this album, I would say. It's got kind of that, that bluesy, those heavy riffs, much darker. And his vocals really kind of gives off that sort of grunge vibe for me. So, I mean, I like the song. Sick Man and Junkhead. I mean, we're 2 songs into some drug abuse, topics here, and there's more on here. So I find it a little bit kind of just rehashing a little bit, maybe just kind of pushing it forward with what's going on to some degree. But I do, it's a good song, and I definitely like it. It's one of the stronger songs with that sort of lower register on the album than some of the others. I like it.
Then we go to the title track, Dirt, which I guess Lane wrote the lyrics to the song, and Cantrell says the lyrics he wrote were so heavy. And he says he thought it was going to be the most badass thing I was going to hear. And he actually wrote the song to a certain person who basically buried my ass. Georgina, Dirt.
Mm. Well, I mean, what can I say here? I mean, this is just like a great song. It's hard to not kind of talk about these songs in detail. I mean, it's just a fabulous song. I can't even, I don't even know what to say. You got me speechless here on this one. This is the main title track, and again, I'm going to keep this one short because I feel like I'm just kind of saying the same thing over and over again. I'll keep this one short. I just love this song. There's only so much I can say about it. So I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's a great song. You're right. I think the intro with the cymbals is really cool. It's got some cool, funky vocals to it. I probably would have moved the song, not have it right next to Junkhead. You're kind of hitting a little bit more of that
Right.
slow sort of kind of feel to it, and you got two in a row here. I probably would have liked maybe the Rooster slammed there, but anyways, that's okay. What the hell do I know? This album sold so much, but the vocal performance is awesome, and it's got a really cool guitar solo in it. But yeah, it's a great song. I agree with you, Georgina, and I can see what you're saying, because there's so much greatness on this album. It's hard to like, even the songs that I'm saying aren't necessarily my favorite. Maybe on another band's album, this would be a top 3 or a top 2 song. The whole album is that good, and I mean, it's almost like repeating how good it is as it continues on. But they were at this point. You're on the. I think you'd be pretty close to. You're just over halfway through the album, and some of the songs, like for instance, Sick Man, Junkhead, and then there's a couple more that kind of do link together and form a little bit of a theme heading into the back half of the album. So, but no, this is a great track. I agree.
Right. I mean, to add one last thing, it's kind of Dirt is a brilliantly dark centerpiece for a
Yeah.
brilliantly dark album, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then we get another song about drugs. Godsmack, which is, I don't know, is that where Godsmack, the band, got their name? I don't even know. Probably. But anyway, Georgina, how do you like Godsmack, the song?
Well, let's see. It opens up with this fettering, like crumbly type of bass line on the record. And then, it kind of continues on into this downward spiral off of Dirt. And once the electric guitar kind of gets layered on top of the bass, and then the drums start pounding, the song feels like it should be a banger, only it never reaches that potential. I must say, right? It should, but it doesn't. And Lane's vocals here are kind of high pitched, yodeling, and it kind of, I don't know. It's the chorus feels a little too artificial. It's a good song. It's not one of their best, but that's what I got out of that.
And Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, again, I'm a huge Mike Starr bass fan. I think, if he would, I believe he left the band due to alcohol issues at the time, but then things obviously progressed from there, as we know what happened with Lane, and then eventually him as well. He was a talented bass player, and that intro is wicked. That bass line makes the whole song, and it's very strong throughout the whole album. It's a fairly heavy song, but like Georgina's right, it doesn't seem to hit it kind of plateaus more than hits an apex of it kind of just never really gets there, and it does cut into kind of a bit of a groovy part, but I don't know. You're three songs now with heavy drug use, so it's kind of okay. By this time, we get it. So, but I mean, I like the song. It's good, and it's again that bass on there, just very talented bass player, and I really wish we would have got a lot more out of him than what actually was he was able to do. So.
Okay, then we go to track 10. Now, you guys don't necessarily have to say much about this. You can if you want to after I'm done. It's only a 43-second instrumental, sometimes listed as Iron Glands, sometimes listed as Untitled, and sometimes not listed at all. Sometimes it was just thrown on before Hate to Feel, I believe, on some albums and not really singled out. But anyway, it was developed out of a guitar riff that Cantrell would play that annoyed the other band members. So he created the song, adding in the reference to Black Sabbath's Iron Man, which you can hear in there, and promised to never play the guitar riff again. And Tom Araya of a group called Slayer, is that how you say that? Is also a guest on this track, doing some vocals or whatever the heck he's doing. Does anybody else want to make a comment on this track?
Well, I mean, there is some kind of overall impact on the album because it adds really nothing major, but it also takes nothing away. So I mean, it is definitely a pleasure to listen to at the very least. And yes, definitely, this interlude kind of features Slayer vocals, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a story like they started recording this album right when the Rodney King riots there had happened. So I think Tom Araya was in the studio with them when they were actually doing this, and they all left LA together and went to go spend I think it was 5 days at the Joshua Tree Desert. So I can't imagine what was happening there, but anyways, they kind of left LA while they were recording this stuff, and I believe this was probably what kind of came out from that as well. So kind of an interesting story, but yeah, it's kind of cool. It's probably a little confusing, especially with so many different pressings of the album, and half the time it's not even listed. So I think it was considered more of an intro than an actual song, but now we all know it's an actual song on there. So.
And then the next two songs are both written by Staley, and he also played the guitars on these tracks. Hate to Feel is the first one. Jim, what do you think of Hate to Feel?
That's not one of my favorites, but it's cool. I like it. It's pretty groovy. It's not a bad song, but it's again not one of my favorites in there. We're heading towards the end of the album where we've got some great stuff, on the horizon here. But I think it's definitely a neat song, and like you say, he played the guitar on it and that, and I don't believe there was kind of murky, and I mean the descending riffs were kind of neat, but again too I don't know, it's not one of my favorites, but yeah, he's playing rhythm guitar on it. You've got Cantrell with lead guitar and backing vocals, so it's kind of interesting that they kind of move that around. I don't think Lane played a lot of guitar, but apparently I know that Cantrell had thought that he was growing as a guitarist, and this song was definitely evidence to that. So that's definitely kind of cool, especially coming from him.
Yes, and Georgina, Hate to Feel.
Let's see. I mean, this is probably one of the most psychedelic cuts on this album. It feels like a drug trip with Lane, like he's purposely like off-key singing, and he's descending this chord progression that oozes like this stench of like addiction and wrong. And the vocals here are, I guess they kind of, to me at least, they feel like John Lennon inspired. I know it sounds crazy, but they do. And it kind of flips between this whining and shrieking and whispering. And I think it's kind of, it's like a dynamic performance in a sense, because he's doing all these things. And then eventually you get this abrupt tempo change, and the repetition work here is a lot better than it was on Sick Man. And lyrically, Lane once again shows his like mastery over like morbidity. For example, all this time I swore I'd never be like my old man. What the hey, it's time to face exactly what I am. Now, the sheer psyche of fury makes this song feel like some kind of psychological horror. And I feel like it's one of a pretty creative metal song. So I'm not going to bash it. I'll give it kind of thumbs up because I find it creative. I find it like creative and dark.
And one of the lyrics I like is used to be curious, now the shit sustenance. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a pretty heavy lyric. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, so
Yeah.
now, yeah, he's pretty much just telling it like it is.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Now the next track, I hate going into somebody's house and I have to sit in the angry chair.
Oh,
Anyway, Jerry Cantrell said this was also written by Steely, but Jerry Cantrell thinks this song is a masterpiece. So what do you think, Jim?
Oh, I think it's a masterpiece, definitely. This is a wicked single. It's a great song. I mean, you're finishing the album off here at two great songs. The vocals on this are amazing, and I like it. I believe it was one of the singles released. I believe, was it, Blake?
I'll
think
check
it
while you
was.
keep talking.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah,
Third
it was
single,
released
yes,
in
third
December.
single.
Yeah, and it definitely another recognizable hit song from Alice in Chains. If you're ask somebody to name like their top 5 songs, this one probably with Rooster, maybe with Man in the Box or We Die Young is on there, and possibly the next one. So definitely a wicked track, and I mean, I think the single did really well, and it's awesome, and I mean the music video is pretty cool too. I believe it was it was all over again Much Music, and that's where they got this from. This was in such heavy rotation at the time that it was super played.
Georgina, you like angry chair?
Yes, I'm sitting in one right now. I mean, this is probably one of my favorite songs on this album. I mean, there's a crispiness to the drums here. Before launching into this like ominous riff on the whole that the whole record pretty much has, it kind of snarls and hisses at you through this mix like predator creeping up in its prey. And then like these vocals begin, right? Sitting on an angry chair, angry walls that steal the air. Stomach hurts and I don't care. What do you see across the way? It's like I'm just singing the song in my head as I'm talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right? Aren't you like I'm just like the it just sticks. It's such a great album, it really is. Throughout like the first half of the verses, you hear this like vocal delivery, and it's kind of about to unleash what sounds like this pent-up rage from the vocalist. And eventually in the second half, like the drums kind of let the demon out. And yet, despite the darkness, like the chorus kind of feels euphoric throughout the lyrics, even though it's alluding to hardcore drug addiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the darker moments of life kind of fuels the narrative of kind of someone here that's desperately attempting to fight their addictive urges, and he gets frustrated when they can't stop these urges, and eventually, like, you hear the chorus, the drums come back, and then you're coming down as a listener from like this high yourself, and it's such an emotionally charged song that it's not surprising that this became one of Dirt's, I believe it was a post-release single as well. Good stuff.
And then we finished the album off with Would. That's WOULD, not Would. And this song, as Jim briefly mentioned earlier, this song first appeared on the soundtrack to the 1992 movie Singles, so before it was released on the album. Georgina, do you like Would?
Yes, I do.
The song, sorry, that sounds bad the way I said that.
Oh boy. I mean, there's very, oh my God. I mean, there's very little to say here now that we haven't already said, you know. Let's see, you got the opening bass here. You've got, you know, Cantrell's calm before the storm kind of a vocal, you know, vocals that are going to come in. And it's definitely one of the sickest and ominous deliveries on the record. And, you know, then eventually Lane's chorus comes in over like this wave of the electric guitar, and it provides the most haunting chorus of probably any of the songs. And I absolutely, once again, I'm a lyric person. I listen to the words. I love the lyrics here. You know, one of my favorites being like drifting body, it's soul exertion, flying not yet quite the notion, right? Alluding to this superficial high and this disassociation of drug addiction, and how this can cause that. And it's just a great song, and that's basically Dirt. Just great stuff. Stands out.
And Jim, what do you think of the song Would?
Oh yeah, just a little fact to it. I mean, this is one of my favorites on the album, and I know, like, yeah, it's probably the most commercially pushed song because it was on a soundtrack. But I mean, this was written by Jerry Cantrell. You know, he's a tribute to his friend Andrew Wood, the lead singer of Mother Love Bone. If you remember that, it was a grunge band from the same time frame, who died of heroin overdose. So, you know, you're kind of, again, like as Georgina said, you're flying through the whole theme of this album. So you know, it's kind of interesting. I kind of take it as a bit of maybe a cautionary tale, and now looking back, I mean, hindsight's, you know, obviously 2020, but maybe there was a window here of a bit of a cautionary tale to maybe some of his bandmates. And anyways, you know, going, obviously looking back and seeing that would make total sense. But no, it's a great song. Again, that bass intro again is massive, and it's this is another really good heavy metal song that I feel on the album, and it's one of my favorites. I'd say probably in my top 5 Alice in Chains songs, and it's my top 3 favorite on this song. So, or sorry, this album. Sorry. So,
yeah, I mean, I won't disagree with you. I mean, this is a great album. I mean, the more I think about it, it really, really is. It kind of it begins with hope and joyful angst, only to like descend into this psychological turmoil. And it's basically, right? It's a testament to Jerry and Lane's vision, basically. And it's rare to see an album walk the line between like being insanely brutal and then truthfully, like, it's catchy. And Dirt does this, right? It does it effortlessly, really. And in short, it's just a fantastic record that any fan, be it rock or metal, should definitely listen to.
And I think it's you know, what I like about it too is it's almost kind of like you're right. The album splits into kind of a bit of a concept album. Obviously, falls into a bit of again, I keep going through this cautionary tale of drug abuse, but it's more of a conceptual that's happening and that they're writing with. And I think it's, you know, I don't think it was definitely glamour. It wasn't glamorizing it. It was more, I think it was more just kind of talking about the demons and what some of the band members were going through at the time. And you're 100% right. They could have brought out something, you know, Facelift was a little bit more kind of a metal, straightforward, just kind of songs that were just really punchy and just really catchy. And it was a lot more upbeat in that sense. And then when they come through this album, and then I always thought Jar of Flies after this would have been maybe the trial with their new bass player, and then they go into their self-titled Alice in Chains, the three-legged dog album, everybody kind of calls it. So, you know, definitely a great album. I agree, Georgina, with that synopsis.
Okay, so that's the album. Now we're gonna rate it. I think I have a guess what Jim's rating will be, but we'll let Jim go first.
You know, this is I love this one, and I love I mean I have everything but their newest one. I was just going through my stack of CDs there, and you know, I've always been a big fan. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. You gotta give it musically, lyrically, and even vocally. This is a band in their prime, right before, you know, the wheels are about to kind of start to come off. But you know, this is like the kind of, I consider it maybe a bit of a countdown album to self-destruction to some degree, but it's so well written and so well played that it has to be a 10 out of 10. And I know a lot of people, a lot of my buddies online and stuff who are, you know, into all kinds of different genres of metal, like death, thrash, black metal, whatever. Well, it's not metal. I get into this argument all the time, and I'm like, it is a metal album. I get it. It was part of the grunge music, but the only thing grunge I feel about this album is that it came out of Seattle, and that's all I'm going to say. But no, it's from my mind, it's probably would be definitely one of my top albums of all time if I went to about maybe top 75 albums. So,
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Georgina, what's your rating out of 10?
I'm gonna give him a 9. I'm gonna give it a 9. And you know, I usually give it more, but I'm gonna give it a 9. I'm not gonna be as bold as Jim. I also have Jar of Flies, myself, which I love as well. It is a great album. And I mean, Alice in Chains had like this level of success, especially with the Jar of Fly albums, where even for grunge peaks years, right? They basically cemented their like legendary status as a band. And Dirt and I think Jar of Flies were probably two of their most ambitious releases. So I'm gonna give it a 9.0. I know it sounds chintzy, but I don't want to kind of go crazy and give it you know, so that's my rating for this album. Great album, fantastic.
I am also giving it a 9 out of 10, mostly because I do like the album, but we're going to do our top 10 albums of 1992. And for where I place this album in my list, I don't really think I should have like 7 or 8 should have 7 or 8 10 out of 10 albums. So that's why I'm giving it.
Well, I do.
So, and okay, usually I ask the question of anybody's seen this band live, but I already know the answer that none of us has seen this band live. I kind of vaguely think I've seen Jerry Cantrell's solo band open for somebody once, but I have no idea who it was. I just kind of think that I've seen them once. But yeah, but nobody's seen them live. So I guess we'll get to our top 10 metal albums of 1992. I'm getting we'll start with Georgina and start at number 10. Okay.
Oh my 10. God. You want me to go from 10 to 1, or do you want me to go? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will say 10 is going to be Dark Throne, Blaze in the Northern Sky. Yeah. 9 is Caius, Blues for the Red Sun. I thought that was a great album. 8, I love it. Yes, totally. I threw stoner metal in there. 8 is Rollins Band. I love Henry Rollins. The End of Silence. Really, I still love Henry. 7 is Rage Against the Machine, self-titled again, Rage Against the Machine. 6 is Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction. 5 is Ministry, Psalm 69. I'm actually going to see them this year. They're going to be playing around town here, so I can't wait to see that
New
show.
album's awesome, by the way.
Yes,
New
I
album.
can't. Is
Yeah.
it? Is it? I haven't heard it as of yet.
Oh, it's
Awesome. Good to
awesome.
know. Oh my God, that's great to know. 4 is Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark. 3, guess what? Pantera, yes, vulgar display of power. We've been there, done that, right, Blake?
Yes.
2 is Alice in Chains' Dirt. I put it as number 2. And number 1, drum roll, please, is Faith No More, Angel Dust.
Okay, Jim, let's hear your top 10 list.
Well, it's interesting because I agree totally about Dark Throne, even though I had them on my list. I have 2 lists here. I had them on my list, but I moved them off. So, anyways, my honorable mention, I'm a huge Yngwie Malmsteen fan. So I wanted to just give a shout out to Fire and Ice. I love all his stuff. And I get a lot of hack for that too, because a lot of people don't like him, but I love him. So anyways, number 10, I got to go with the concept album by Wasp, Crimson Idol. At this point, I wasn't really a big Wasp fan, but this album, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably up there with maybe Operation Mindcrime. And although I do like King Diamond's, most of King Diamond's catalogs as their concept albums, but this is a really, really good one. Probably the last Wasp album that I even paid attention to. So I love that. Alice in Chains' Dirt hit my number 9, only because I have a few picks on here that are a little higher, just due to what they mean to the metal movement, and that being number 8, Deicide with Legion. I mean, these guys, this was a massive album and really important. And I could have easily thrown Dark Throne in there because Georgina's right. That album is a huge, huge, big part of the metal movement. But I'm a huge Testament fan. Number 7 goes to Testament, The Ritual. I love that album. It's a great album. Number 6, again, I'm a huge Suicidal Tendencies fan. And although this album, Art of Rebellion, kind of doesn't get a lot of love out there, I really like it. Number 5, Black Sabbath, Dehumanizer. That is a wicked, underrated album, and I absolutely love it. And number 4, a huge Dream Theater fan. And you got Images and Words. I mean, I think it's probably their best album, so I have to put it on there. Huge Dream Theater fan. I know Blake's seen them. I haven't seen them live, and I would love to see them live. Number 3, my favorite band of all time, Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction. I kind of didn't really even want to put this on the list because I consider it their Black album. But it's better than the Black album from Metallica in my mind, so I'm putting it on there. Number 2, Georgina, Pantera, vulgar display of power. I love Pantera, love everything about Pantera. Would love to see Pantera now, even though I know they're touring now. I'd still love to see them. That album was just fantastic. That and Cowboys are amazing. And my number 1 is my all-time favorite death metal band of all time, Obituary, The End Complete. That is a huge album for them. That Slowly We Ride, even their latest album from last year was my number 1 pick for 2023. So huge Obituary fan. But I love the fact you put Dark Throne on there, and I had that as high as number 4 on my original list that I was going through, but I decided to kind of chunk Deicide in there. I just thought the album, it had that much more of a punch to it, but great. I thought Dark Throne there as well could have easily made my list.
Awesome.
Okay, now my top 10. Now, I guess I did have Testament as my 10, The Ritual,
nice.
As Jim did, but I think I dropped it off to throw Megadeth's Countdown to Extinction as my number 10, but it probably could have switched those back and forth. Whatever.
We'll allow that.
Yeah. And number 9, I got Iron Maiden's Fear of the Dark. Number 8, I have this Alice in Chains album, Dirt is my number 8. Then I have Pantera is my number 7, Vulgar Display of Power. Number 6, which I didn't hear from anybody else, Manowar, Triumph Heal. Why are you laughing? I love Manowar.
I don't know. Manowar's wicked, yeah.
Number 5, I have Ministry with Psalm 69, so I matched Georgina there.
All right.
Number 4, I have Suicidal Tendencies, Art of
Nice.
Rebellion, because I love that album. I don't care if people don't give it love. I think it's my favorite
Yep.
Suicidal Tendencies album, actually. And number 3, another group nobody else mentioned, Trouble, with their album Manic
Oh, wow.
Frustration.
Yeah, I forgot about
Wow,
Trouble.
yeah, wow.
I love that album. And you mentioned Dream Theater, so my number 2 is Dream Theater, Images
Yeah.
and Words. And yes, that's their best album. And I think I've seen them live about 10 times or so, something
Oh,
like that.
really?
Yes, and my number 1 album, people should know what this is. I know Georgina knows what it is
Faith
because
No
it's the
More.
same as hers. It's
Yeah,
Faith No
yeah.
More.
Great
Angel
album.
Dust. Yes, I love that album, but I love like probably my top 7. I don't even top 8, including the Alice in Chains one we just did. I love all. I go back. I listen to these albums all the time. This year, I always go back and listen to these albums, so they definitely stuck with me. And now, if we did this list in 1992, it might not have been Faith No More. It probably would have been something else. It probably would have been Pantera, maybe, or maybe even the Ministry one. But since we're doing it now, I'm looking back, and Faith No More grew on me over the years. So that's why Faith No More is my number 1. Just like Georgina.
Yeah, I'm a big Faith No More fan. Shout out to Mike Patton. Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a good one. Anybody have any closing thoughts on this album or 1992 or anything?
It was a good year.
Yeah. I was 21.
Good
It was a good
times.
year.
Good times.
Georgina was probably 15.
Yeah, just teenager. Yes. Good times for sure. Good wholesome times, and a great decade of music. The 80s and 90s were just kind of really stellar as far as what it brought to the table in rock and roll and heavy metal. Really great years, great eras, I should say.
Yes.
Kind of
okay.
like as much as people, I know I may piss some people off with this comment, but at this point, had burned off a lot of that unneeded hair metal. I'm not talking
Don't hold back, Jim. Let us know. Tell us.
Not the original, like, okay, Cinderella, Poison, all the original stuff that came out, fine. But by the time this year, we were getting just so much monotonous stuff. There had to be like a culling. So this was the culling, and this brought out a lot of really good albums. And I got to be honest with you, as much as back then I was probably wondering how the metal movement was kind of changing quite a bit, and I agree. I do like a lot of the grunge bands and grunge albums, but they also didn't really last as long either. So it was kind of maybe a little bit of a fad. But this was good. There was a lot of meat here for sure when you think about it, and it did burn a lot of that unneeded stuff off. By this time, by the start of 1990, hair bands, it was becoming just kind of, we're putting this band together. You're gonna have 2 power ballads on it. This is how it's gonna be. We're gonna do some videos and blah blah. And it's the same thing that's been released, from '85 all the way up. So it was kind of nice to have this more darker, serious side of things heading into the early '90s for metal.
Right.
Sorry. Sorry, all those hair metal people out there that love it.
Yeah, I don't think we got. I don't know. Was hair metal even still going on here? I guess it was. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so thanks guys for joining me, and I think next week, as long as schedules align, the album will be Megadeth's "Rust in Peace."
Very nice.
Title, right? Yes. Okay. So thanks everybody for listening, and join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.